This presentation is supported by our regional water supplier, Tarrant Regional Water District. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants so they can clean it to meet drinking water standards for our communities. They also work with many cities in Tarrant County, such as Fort Worth, Arlington, and Mansfield, to provide water conservation programs for the community. Conservation is an important water supply strategy to help meet the needs of a growing population. There are currently 2.3 million people in Tarrant County, and this is expected to double over the next 50 years. This is why TRWD supports many programs that help save water through outdoor watering and gardening education. At SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free weekly watering advice custom to your location. If you are a resident of Tarrant County, you can sign up for a free sprinkler system checkup where a licensed irrigator comes to your home and provides a comprehensive evaluation of your system with recommendations to reduce water waste. There is also an event calendar where you can find important information about future classes and workshops. TRWD also partners with organizations like Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service and the Tarrant County Master Gardeners to provide educational programs just like this one. Be sure to check out SaveTarrantWater.com and sign up for their free services.
Hey, well, thank you for joining us today, everybody. I know we had some crazy weather last night, and a lot of people still don't have power or internet. So thank you for being here. Hopefully you guys, your homes did not sustain any damage, hail, things like that. I know that I lost a small tree in the front yard, but thankfully that was it. So we are going to talk about how to create flower beds without digging. And what I mean by that is not having to go out and shovel all of that nasty grass, if you will. You know, grass takes up a lot of water, chemicals if you want it to look good, such as fertilizers and herbicides. So I like to get rid of grass. It's just a money hog to me. And as a gardener, I like to put a lot of flowers, perennials, and shrubs out versus having just a lawn. So I will show you how to do that today. And at the end, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. So let's get started. Oh, I'm stuck here. All right, so lasagna gardening may be right for you if you want a new flower bed. I know a lot of you are probably here because you want to do exactly that. You're sick of maybe looking at your backyard and just seeing a square patch of grass. So what I'll do at the end of the how-to steps is show you some real life examples, some before and after, and hopefully that'll inspire you guys where you can go into your own backyard and do the same thing. You dislike shoveling and digging up grass. If you've ever done that, you've probably told yourself, I'll never do that again. I've done it a few times and I will never go back to doing it that way. I actually discovered this technique about, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago. I hurt my back and I thought, you know, as a gardener, I'm always putting out new flower beds, vegetable beds, and I thought there's got to be a better way. And I just started looking at the internet and looking up different ideas and came across lasagna gardening. So I did not come up with this method. It's been in existence for a long time, but it works. But you do have to be careful. You have to be cautious about some things because you can do it the wrong way. So I will make sure and give you all those pointers. You don't like to use Roundup or glyphosate. Okay, some people do. Not here to judge. I don't personally like those products, but some people resort to them because it is a proven method to get rid of those grass roots. As a matter of fact, a lot of, if not most, landscape companies will use glyphosate. They'll douse the yard where they want to put in that new flower bed to kill that grass. Like I said, I prefer not to resort to those toxic chemicals. I know there's a time and a place if you're very mindful and just do small spot treatments. But to me, the idea of just spraying a bunch of glyphosate in the yard doesn't sound too appealing. You enjoy getting rid of grass and it's high maintenance. Who likes to mow? Not me. You enjoy amending soil and providing a healthier environment for your plants. If you guys compost, this is kind of composting your lawn with cardboard so that you can have a richer and amended soil for your plants. I'll explain all of that, don't worry. You have to have some patience because this is not, go out there and put out the cardboard and the mulch and you've got a ready to go flower bed or vegetable bed. It takes time because those roots and the grass above have to have time to decompose and completely die off. So I would say, minimum 6 months, but you do have to kind of give it a full year. But there is a way to get instant gratification. You can dig some holes and plant your plants. I don't recommend planting little annuals everywhere because that would just be so much trouble to do. But maybe plant a tree in that flower bed or some shrubs. I do have some examples to show you what that looks like. So I'll show that to you as we move along. So what exactly is lasagna gardening? So take a look at this picture. See the edging? You've got some cardboard that's layered, multiple layers. Okay, we don't just have one layer and call it a day. There are multiple layers there smothering the grass and the weeds below it. Okay, create a flower bed without digging. We're not scalping or digging up the lawn. That could be backbreaking. Even if you use a machine to scalp it, Bermuda has really long roots. They can go 3 to 4 feet down into the ground. So a lot of times scalping does not do it. It will just return with a vengeance. Ooh. So cardboard and mulch are layered kind of like lasagna when you make lasagna. When you make lasagna, you've got your meat sauce, your cheese, your noodles. Same method here. We've got our soil below, of course, and then your lawn. And then on top of the lawn is the cardboard, multiple layers. Don't forget, not just one sheet. You need to put multiple layers and overlap. And then on top of that is your 3 inches of mulch, okay? So you're in essence suffocating the lawn and weeds so that they cannot exist. Cardboard becomes a barrier for the unwanted grass and weeds. So no sunlight means no photosynthesis. Smothered grass dies over time. It becomes compost. If you guys are familiar with the scientific part of composting, it's basically nitrogen and carbon and water and air that becomes compost. So we're sort of doing the same thing here to kill your grass. And the compost, of course, enriches your native soil and makes your plants happy. All right, when locating the best site for your new garden, you really have to think about this. What I do is, I have a half-acre yard, so I put in many, many beds. The entire perimeter in the back is all flower and tree and shrub beds. Got a vegetable garden bed, hammock area. All those areas I created using this technique. I did not dig any of those up. All those flower beds the grass was smothered. And, I gave it 6 months to a year, most of them a year, because I have some really thick, healthy grass in certain areas of my yard. So I was patient. And again, I'll show you those pictures as we move along. But think about the site, okay? Sprinkler heads, pipes, and other structures. I say this from experience because I created a raised vegetable garden one time and I put it right on top of a sprinkler head. Then I had to do some digging. I had already filled it, everything. It was just kind of a nightmare. So look at your area, turn on your sprinkler system if you have one. Are there any sprinklers in the way? Mark those, or maybe you need to relocate the flower bed, put it somewhere else. So obviously you can't relocate a flower bed, but your idea, maybe it needs to be in a different location. Is there sufficient sun or shade for your plan? If you're wanting a cactus garden, obviously a shady spot is not going to do it for you. Is it close to a water source? If you're wanting to plant annuals or maybe flowers, plants that need more water, hopefully you're not doing that. But if so, things like non-native hydrangeas, begonias, things like that, those are what I call thirsty plants. They're not from here, they're not native, so they require a lot more maintenance, a lot more water. If you're wanting to do something like that, you might need more water. You don't want to tote gallons of water from a faraway source. So hopefully you are planting perennials and native and adapted plants, and you don't need as much water, but still to establish those new plants, you will need water initially so that they get a healthy root system. So do consider your water source. Can you create a xeriscape flower bed? That'd be great. Then you can probably put that just about anywhere in your yard. Can you maintain this new flower bed? Okay, I probably break this rule a little too often. I want a new flower bed here, there. And then when it comes time to mulch, I'm like, what was I thinking? This is a lot to mulch. So I just do it in stages now. The back perimeter 1 year, the next year around the pool area, I have a little plan going. So make sure you can financially, time-wise, maintain these new flower or vegetable beds so that you just don't overdo it and it becomes more of a chore. You know, gardening should be enjoyable and be fun. Good planning is definitely key. So in the morning, drink your coffee, go outside, kind of survey the area. Is this the right spot for what I have on my mind? And think about it. All right, we're not digging. Okay, remember I told you these are flower beds that we are creating without digging, but you will eventually dig in there, right? In the future, you're going to be digging for new shrubs, flowers, etc. So call 811. It's a free service for everybody. Call, you know, I said a few business days on this sheet here, but maybe a week ahead. They normally come out within a few days. They mark your land, you know, where you want to, your proposed area, to make sure you don't have a bunch of electrical lines down there that could actually hurt you. So I always do this before I start digging, and I do recommend that you do it as well. All right, so remember, it's not completely maintenance free. When I say, oh, you know, create easy flower beds by not digging, it doesn't mean put down your cardboard, your mulch, you know, go on vacation. You still need to maintain it, keep an eye on it, make sure you don't have any escapees. What I mean by escapees are, let's say you didn't put down enough cardboard. Hopefully you don't make that mistake. A lot of people do, but let's say that you don't overlap them, okay? So for instance, what I mean is you put 2 pieces of cardboard side by side instead of overlapping. Well, any little crack, Bermuda, St. Augustine, whatever type of lawn or weeds you're trying to kill can escape right through those little cracks to the sunlight. We don't want that. We want complete darkness, okay? We want to smother them so that photosynthesis cannot occur. Bermuda, I call it the devil, jokingly, because we know that it creeps into our flower beds. No matter what we do, there's always that little maintenance nightmare with Bermuda. St. Augustine is a little more tame than that, but Bermuda likes to sneak into our flower beds and vegetable gardens, you know, through those roots. So make sure you check for escapees. And let's say that you do have some, nip it in the bud quickly. Make sure what you can do is push the existing mulch aside and put another piece of cardboard right on that problem spot where green plants are getting through, whether it's your lawn or weeds. Make sure you suffocate it again, then push that mulch right over it. You shouldn't have a lot of those situations if you did it right. Okay, that's the key word. You have to do it right. But even the best of us, you know, I've gotten lazy at the end of my project sometimes and, you know, didn't watch the overlapped cardboard as well. Also, the edges, the very ends or edges where your cardboard meets your edging. Sometimes those areas can have escapees, okay? For me, it's a lot of times that can happen. So make sure you get those edges, the cardboard edge that meets the edging, make sure you wet it so that it's more pliable and you can bend that cardboard and kind of bend it down so that you create like a little cocoon or a little cave so that grass cannot escape. I hope that makes sense for you guys. Check it once a week. Make sure you go out there and everything looks as it should. Okay, keep digging dogs and cats away. Can you imagine doing this work and then going outside and seeing cardboard and mulch just all over the place? So make sure you keep them away. I have two dogs. They have never, ever messed with any areas that I've created, but I knew that like some puppies and some dogs that like to dig can create some issues. So you might need to section that area off or fence it off. This is important. Do not step on it, okay? What happens when cardboard is wet? You may not think it's wet because it's under all that mulch. So the mulch might appear dry, but it might still be moist underneath, okay? What happens with wet cardboard? It rips easily. So every time you step on wet cardboard, you're creating tears in that cardboard. Tears equal escaped or sunlight penetrating, and then you get escapees. So make sure you don't step on it. I put stepping stones in mine just right on top. They're easily removable once you start planting, but that's what I do. I'll show you some pictures coming up. Materials needed, a lot of cardboard, way more than you think. Every time I start a project, I am just so close to being short or have to stop and make sure I go get some more. So make sure, since I've been doing this for so many years now, I almost have too much at times than I'm able to share. But at the very beginning, I was always short. So make sure you save up more than you think. What I do is once I gather those cardboard boxes, I break them down so that they're not, big and taking up a lot of space. Get a little box knife or scissors and cut the tape and flatten them out, and then store them like books, okay, right up against a wall. And, maybe save them for a month or two, and then you'll be ready for a larger project. You'll need edging material, a watering hose, and mulch. You're going to need at least 3 inches, okay? 2, you can get away with that, but I would say at least 3 inches deep. That just ensures that if the wind blows or something like that happens, you will never see that cardboard showing, because we don't want a cardboard flower bed. We want it to look like a professional flower bed. So make sure you put, like I said, 2, 3 inches is recommended, but you can get away with 2. All right, free mulch sources. Mulch can be expensive, unless you buy it on sale. City dumps and mulch sites, give them a call. Make sure they have some in stock. I know that here in I'm actually in Fort Worth, but Haslett area, our local city dump here has free mulch that we can pick up. I know that in South Fort Worth, there's another site, getchipdrop.com. ChipDrop also offers free mulch. They're basically arborists that cut down trees, mulch it up. They will come and dump it in your driveway or near your home, usually just for a small donation. But what I will say about that is it's not always perfect. You might get some large chunks. It will not be colored. It's going to be just like this dump right here, just fresh, natural mulch, okay? You don't get to pick red, black. It's just going to be natural wood mulch. But it's a bargain. It's free. Just a small donation if you'd like. Another warning about chip drop is that it might be way too much. So be prepared to call friends and gardeners to come pick some up. Cardboard, let's talk about this. Nowadays, because they're trying to become more eco-friendly, which is wonderful, I like to see this, but we have to kind of shift our game plan here and realize some boxes are too thin, okay? So let's think about like a shoe box. That's too thin. We're talking about thick cardboard, durable, sturdy boxes. So if it's a shoe box type of 1-ply cardboard, that's not what I mean by a piece of cardboard. You're going to need at least 3 or 4 of those to equal, hefty cardboard. Also, these cardboard pieces with these holes, you're going to have to put several layers on top of those holes, because obviously this is a hole for sunlight to peek through. So be mindful of perforations or large holes or even cracks and slits. Sources, HOAs. The first Monday of the month for us in my area, that's the bulk trash day. We tend to see a lot of boxes set outside on the curb. Ask your friends, put it on Facebook. I'll come and pick it up if you guys have any extra cardboard. Big box stores, a lot of places will say no because they recycle, and I believe they get some money for it. But sometimes they'll be willing to share. I've gotten cardboard at the large stores before. Large and thick boxes are the best, as I said earlier. If you're in a pinch, I have done this before, and it's hard to come by newspapers, magazines, and things like that. We don't really use those as frequently as before, but you can use about 15, maybe 20 layers of newspaper to suffice for like little skinny corners and things like that. I wouldn't do a full lasagna bed with this, but it is good in a pinch and for smaller spots. Kind of like this cardboard here with this hole. You may be able to just cover that hole up with a lot of layers of newspaper, for instance. All right, step by step. We will also email this to you, so you can either take a picture of it on this presentation, but don't bother writing it down because we will send it to you. So the first step, and again, I will show you these pictures, okay? First step is to mow. Scalp the area, whether it's full of weeds, grass, maybe mostly dirt with a few weeds and grass, whatever it is, go ahead and mow as close to the ground as you can, because you do not want to be fighting with 6-inch or 12 inches of grass, right? You're not wanting to push that cardboard down and fight all of that vegetation. So go ahead and scalp the area so it makes it easier on you. 2, outline the area. You can use a hose to kind of outline how you want your new flower bed to look, the shape. Do you want it straight? Do you want it curved? I do recommend doing a slightly curved shape that is visually most appealing to our eyes, to most people. Straight is okay, maybe if you're wanting more of like a modern type look. You definitely, well, it's all a matter of preference, honestly, or your own opinion. But jagged is, sometimes kind of too hectic for the eye, and it can be a nightmare to mow. So think about what's easiest for you to maintain. Is it a soft, gradual line? Probably so. Or even a straight line? Probably so. Circles and things like that might be a little more hectic to maintain. So think about that as well. Spray paint, of course, that's not as eco-friendly when you're drawing your lines, but I do that occasionally if I'm not using rope or a hose. So you do have options. What I will say about the spray paint is try not to do that in the middle of winter, because if you change your mind, it's kind of stuck there. Whereas if you do it during the growing season, the next week when you mow, your line goes away. So you might be mindful of that. Yes, I have done that before. Another thing is I tend to create a shape and then look at it for a few days. I don't just jump the gun and start putting out my cardboard, edging, and all that. I like to make sure that is my decision. And I'm telling you, almost every time I will go outside with my coffee and think, that initial idea I had, that's just too small. I might as well go all out, make it a little bigger. Or I've also had situations where I thought, that's going to be a little too big to maintain for a mailbox. Let me bring that in a little bit. So think about it, okay? It's kind of a permanent project once you start laying things down. So think about it before you make that decision. Step 3, install your edging, okay? This clearly defines the flower bed or vegetable bed shape, whatever you're trying to put in. It creates a clean, professional, and defined look. Also, when you're mowing and edging, it helps to have that clean line to edge up against. I personally prefer metal edging. A lot of people don't like it. I like it because it's easily removable. You can adjust it, change it. It lasts almost forever. It does rust, but I kind of like that patina look myself. I've had mine at this house for almost 15 years. It's great. I've changed my mind and actually made my flower beds bigger. All I had to do was put a shovel underneath it, pop it out, and bring it out, or add another piece in between to make it, just a bigger flower bed. And I'll show you what I've done in a minute here. Metal edging is expensive though. It's gone up so much. So I will warn you about that. You can use rocks, bricks, any kind of edging really. Whatever you like, you can use. Step 4, place the cardboard. 2 to 3 cardboard layers are generally recommended. Some of you may want to think about 4. I know that sounds like a lot, but once you start wetting down, you put down your cardboard, you wet it down to put some weight on it so that if a gust of wind comes through, it doesn't move on you. Once you start kind of pressing it down and putting some water on it, it's not as thick as you thought it was. And it's also going to create better soil. I was just talking to another master gardener before this started, and she noted how many worms came to the area. And that's exactly what I have seen. Anytime I create a lasagna flower bed or garden or a vegetable garden, the worms come. And that's a good sign. They like that soil and they're sitting there. They're in that soil, aerating it, turning it, okay, and adding good worm compost for you at the same time. So the more cardboard, the better, in my opinion. Make sure you overlap each cardboard by 6 to 8 inches. The more, the better. Water down each piece of cardboard, like I said, to just kind of weigh it down. And another thing I like to do is once I put down about 4 to 5 sheets of cardboard, wet it down, then I like to go ahead and put my mulch on top just to make sure if a gust of wind comes through, it's not going to move on me. On a very calm day, you can get away with doing almost your entire proposed flower bed area, but it has to be such a calm day. So kind of look at the weather that day and determine what's best for you. Watch those edges. That's usually the biggest problem with this technique, is where the edging and the cardboard meet. So make sure your cardboard's it goes a little beyond your edging. Wet it and turn it under, okay, so that grass and weeds cannot sneak in between. Time to mulch. Right on top of that cardboard, you can put a 3-inch layer of mulch right on top to keep it down and to hide the ugly cardboard. Then at the very end, you can water it in. You don't have to. You can wait for rain to come. If you have a sprinkler system, you can do that, but it's optional. Okay, here is a small, tiny little flower bed that I created many, many years ago, but it's a good example to show you what it looks like. So note here, I have the metal brown edging in this situation. I put that in. And what I do on this is I actually will wet the ground to make it a little soft. And I will use a shovel to kind of perforate the ground to make it easier for me to insert that into the ground. You don't have to, but I find it easier to, so that a few inches of that edging goes down into the ground and looks better. I actually prefer to put my edging down a little deeper, but this was kind of early on, an older picture. I like to put at least half of that edging into the ground personally. Then see here, I used a little bit of mail flyer, junk mail paper. I ran out, so I started using that on top of the cardboard just to ensure none of the grass could get through. But after you do that, after the edging, the cardboard, mulch on top. Okay, that's what it needs to look like. This is what it should not look like. This is a no-no. I cannot stress this enough. This is not my picture. I found it online, but I can't tell you how many times I have seen people do this and then they say, oh, lasagna gardening didn't work for me. Stuff just grew right through. Well, let's take a look at this. See this crack right here? They did not overlap. Okay, that grass is just going to go right through. And it's all over the place if they left that like that. What about this area right here? It looks like they've got a vegetable bed going here. What about this area? How are they going to maintain that? Okay, so think about your plan before you start throwing cardboard down. Where's the edging? Where's the line of demarcation here? How are they going to mow? Where will they stop? How will they edge without moving these cardboard pieces around? They're going to shift, not end up where you wanted them. So this is why it's so important to put down that edging first. Okay, that's your first step. Put down your edging so that you have a definitive line and then place your cardboard. I cannot stress this enough. I do not recommend doing this. This will be a maintenance nightmare. Okay, so if you want a lasagna garden and you do it this way, please don't do it. Okay, go do something else, maybe compost or something like that, because this will bring you so many issues and problems. Okay, and I don't want to lead you guys in the wrong direction. Please do it the right way. I can't stress that enough. All right, this is an area of my yard that is very weak. Okay, you can even see the dirt, and the reason for this is because I have some oak trees that are becoming mature, and they are shading out the lawn. I like the trees better than the lawn, so I don't fuss about the grass. It can die as far as I care, and I will probably turn it into a mulched bed pretty soon anyways. So this is an area kind of towards the back. If you have a weak lawn like this, I would still recommend 2 sheets of cardboard, overlapped, of course. But something like this, you can get away with 1 to 2 sheets of cardboard, and it'll suffocate it and kill the grass. On the other hand, here's another part of my lawn that is very thick and healthy because this Bermuda is getting almost full sun. In a situation like this, I would say 4 sheets of cardboard. 3 might be okay, but I would say 4 just to make sure, because you don't want to do all this work and then see Bermuda popping up after a couple of months. So I would take the cautious road and put down 4 sheets. If your lawn is this thick and healthy, you might even want to do this. A lot of people, what they like to do with these lasagna beds, just for longevity, is to go ahead and put down several layers of cardboard, and then right on top of that, put that black commercial style weed barrier right on top. I'm not talking about the dollar store variety. The weeds will laugh at you if you use that. Seriously, it's not strong enough. I'm talking about a commercial style weed barrier. You can get it online. Just order it online. Very reasonable. Put that on the very top layer, then your mulch. Then you'll have extra armor against that nasty Bermuda. Okay, it doesn't have a chance if you do that. Helpful tips. Lasagna garden on a calm, still day, because I have done this when it's really windy and it was hectic because you're trying to, pick up your cardboard, lay it down, the wind's blowing you around. I'm little, so it was almost like I went sailing. So make sure you do it on a calm day. Start with a small project, okay? I have my hammock area that I'll show you soon is about, I would say 40 feet by 50 feet. And to me, that is a large project. That took me 2 days, taking a lot of breaks, but 2 days to do. So start with a small project like a little flower bed around your mailbox. That's a great project to start with. I actually did that too, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Do that first and make sure this is something that you want to do. Make sure it's something that you can handle. Because even though I say, it's the easier way to create flower beds, if you have bad knees, you're still bending over. If you've got a bad back, you're still bending over. You still have to tote the bags of mulch or shovel the mulch out of your truck to get to this little spot. So even though it's much better on your back than digging up a lawn, it's still manual labor. Okay, so be aware of that. Mulch over your cardboard as soon as you can, because that wind, okay, it could be a still day and all of a sudden here comes the wind. You can add shrubs and trees for instant appeal before you start to lasagna garden. I have pictures of that too coming up. Do not try to sheet mulch over woody, thick, or hardy plants, okay? Crepe myrtle suckers, those will just pick up your cardboard. They'll laugh at it, okay? It's just too strong for this. If you have to lasagna garden over ferns, cannas, crepe myrtle suckers, and strong plants, even we were just talking about this, nutsedge. Nutsedge is very hard to eradicate. You really need to use a chemical geared towards that to eradicate that, unfortunately. It's very tricky to eradicate that one. But they will try to come up through the cardboard over time, okay? So you may not want to do that if you've got a lot of that going on. What I have done with a patch of cannas that I didn't feel like digging up, and I wanted to lasagna garden right over it to get rid of them, because as you know, cannas can get out of control. I scalped them to the ground, did the lasagna technique on top, the cardboard, then the mulch, and then I put a big old rock on top. The cardboard did not lift up because of that. Or you can put a big flower pot right on top of it. But of course, it just depends on how big that area is. You might have to dig up cannas if it's a 5-foot area or something like that. Woody plants will definitely pop up and lift your cardboard. So when I say lasagna garden to get rid of your lawn and weeds, you still have to be mindful of these other woody or strong plants that can ruin your project. You can sheet mulch. Sheet mulch, lasagna gardening, same thing. You'll see me use those words back and forth. Monkey grass, Loretta, is an evergreen grass. There's a spicata variety and there's a muscari variety. The muscari stays in a nice little neat clump and spreads slowly. The spicata, Loretta, is more like a lawn. It will spread like crazy and then you'll have a patch of it. This technique does get rid of that spicata variety, also the other one, but monkey grass you can eradicate using this method, but do use, I would say, at least three sheets of cardboard to make sure all of that is killed. So 1 year after your lasagna gardening project, okay, a thick lawn, like I showed you earlier, golf course type lawn, it'll take a full year to die because of that healthy network of roots down below. So don't get in a hurry. Don't start digging holes and cutting away your cardboard. Don't do that. You're going to end up with a big mess, because even though if you lift up your cardboard and see that the grass looks dead, I assure you the roots are still viable and will grow back with a vengeance. So a healthy, thick lawn, even Bermuda in general, I would still give it a full year. I know that sounds like, oh my gosh, a whole year, but think about this. We're almost into half of this year. Time just flies. You'll find remnants of tape from the boxes because you don't have to remove that. You can if you want. I know some people do. I'm lazy, so I just put the whole cardboard down, and a year or two after I do this project, I will dig my hole for my new plant or whatnot, and I will see tape, just the tape, because all the cardboard has degraded and composted into your earth. So you won't see any of the cardboard when the time comes, but you will find tape. So I call those tape snakes, but I find them all over the yard just because all my flower beds that I created are done that way. It doesn't hurt anything, just pull them up, throw them away. And then you're ready to plant. See that worm in this picture? You'll see a lot of those. All right, let's get to the fun part, lasagna gardening examples. Now you guys know how to do this, to layer, overlap, water it down, then put your mulch on top, okay? Here is a small flower bed that I did with a friend. She's not a gardening lover. She wanted it low maintenance. She didn't care for flowers or anything. These are the plants that she chose, but the home that she purchased just had this little, I believe it was about 3 feet by 1.5 feet. She was growing weeds in it, basically. We removed the grass, I'm sorry, not the grass, but the rocks and this edging, and we put in metal edging. So it's a tiny little flower bed. Her yard was really, really small when she lived here. I believe it was like 20 by 15. It was teeny tiny. So she didn't want a big flower bed. She wanted her dog to be able to play in the lawn. So this is the size she wanted. We planted 3 muscari Loretta. Remember, those are the ones that don't spread out like crazy. They kind of stay in their little nice clumps. And we planted a little desert willow baby tree in the back. So this is what she ended up with. And we put cardboard all around it. Now, if you're wanting, we could have just done cardboard all over, okay, and then waited a year. But she wanted some instant appeal. So that's why we went ahead and dug the 4 holes, 1 for the little tree, 3 for the Loretta, But when you do this, you have to make sure you dig up all the grass around those holes that you dug for the plants. You can't just dig the hole and put the plant in, because remember, that grass is going to see that sunlight and come right through, and then it's going to fight in the same space as your new plant. So you're going to have to scalp and dig a little bit around it too, and then keep a really close eye on it as time goes on, because you might have some escapees. There's a high chance you're going to have escapees, especially if you have a very strong, thick lawn. So we did this, we wet it down, and then we put the mulch right on top. So here is the before, and then here are the 2 after pictures. It took us a couple of hours. I believe we used 2.5 bags of mulch, maybe 8 boxes, 8 medium-sized boxes, and a piece of edging. So that was a very low budget project, very simple, and she got some instant gratification from having a little flower bed that she could plant anything in later on if she wanted to. So I would start with something small like this so you don't find yourself overwhelmed and you get to learn the process. All right, this is my mailbox. I had to scratch out the address here, but this is actually a Google picture because I forgot to take a front picture before I started. So this is how it looked. It was very lonely. I felt like it needed kind of a grounding effect. So I went ahead and did the edging, okay? Then cardboard. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I actually planted some things first using the steps I told you about, where you dig the hole, dig a little around it, okay? Then plant your plant, then cardboard everywhere. And this is what the steps look like. So this is what it looked like. I'm sure my neighbors thought I was crazy when they first saw this, thinking, what is she doing? But you'll see layers and layers of cardboard, okay? These are just some hardy plants that I dug up from my backyard, some catmint, some irises, just some things that I didn't have to go out and pay for. They're easily propagated. And there's some more cardboard. And then I dumped mulch right on top and then watered the whole thing in, okay? That's my mom. She came over to help me. This is easily a 1-person project, but we like to garden together. So it was just a fun time to work on this project together. All right, this is my friend Juliette Shard. She's also a master gardener. She purchased this house and it looked like it had an unloved backyard. She has a mulberry tree right here. Okay, there's another big tree behind it, but look at this poor little tree. It looks dead, right? It was during off season, so it didn't have any leaves at the time. But it just was basically a square patch with mostly weeds and some lawn. I know this line looks a little crazy, but look at the roof line. I did a panoramic picture and it just didn't turn out right, but it gives you an idea of what we were trying to do. So we put out the metal edging. And again, you can use any edging you'd like, rock, stone, but I like metal edging. It's easily placed. It stays put. The rubber edging and such is such a nightmare for me personally to deal with. I always try to just buy the metal edging if the person can afford it, etc., because less headaches. Trust me, less headaches. So here is the before, kind of an unloved backyard. And here we are working on, step by step. You'll see some cardboard. We had some dark cardboard there that looks black underneath, but just did it in sections until all of it was covered up. And there's that half dead looking tree again that I want to point out because it looks so lovely later on. Every time I do a lasagna gardening around or near a tree, it seems like the tree is so happy later on. I guess because it's not fighting with the grass anymore, because tree roots, the majority of them are in the top 12 inches of soil for most trees. So I think because there's more moisture, it's cooler in the summertime because of all the mulch. I think it just does so much for the trees. You don't want to put mulch up against the tree bark. You want to make sure the mulch is pushed away a couple inches from the tree bark. But other than that, you're not disrupting the roots or anything else. Just, go on your way with your lasagna gardening on top. So here it is after. As you can see, this tree just looks better and better every time I look at it. The leaves came back. I have some other pictures. I think I have it in this presentation too. But look in the back. She created a little park-like setting. She's got a fire pit back there now, a bench. It's come such a long way, right? So there's the before and now a loved yard. Look at that mulberry tree. It just looks, that's that same tree. It just looks better and better as the years have gone by. She has put another personal little touch in here. She put more edging on the back side of this and put in dark edging. The back edging, the back mulch here, the lighter, that's that chip drop mulch. Okay, so it's going to be a natural color. If you like that, that'll work for you. But this darker mulch, to me, it just makes plants pop. Some people don't like the color additive. I don't feel like it has messed with or done anything negative to my plants. So it's all a matter of preference, but there's her fire pit. It's like a lovely park setting that she's created using this technique. And look at the other parts of her yard now because she's gotten rid of all that grass. She's able to put these raised veggie beds, a little walking path back to her hidden compost and shed area. She's just done so much with this technique without having to dig up grass. Then she wanted to do the front yard. So I came over and we worked on this together. We put in the edging. That's always the first step. And the reason she wanted to do this is see the problematic grass. You know, she had a fungal issue going on. She got tired of having to spray, fertilize, water, and mow. And this neighbor's tree next door shaded it out too much. So it was just a constant battle. So she did the mailbox area first and then ended up doing all of this. And there's her another chip drop delivery. And there you go. This is that natural mulch. Again, if you like the dark mulch, that's chip drop is not for you. That's just going to be natural shredded mulch that they provide for you, but they bring you a lot of it. And it's such a great deal if you're on a budget. So this will be ready to plant in 1 year. Actually, this was done, I think about a year or two ago now. So she has already started planting in it, all native, drought tolerant plants. So now she doesn't have to worry about that problematic grass. She has very little of it left. Here are some areas just kind of around my yard that I've worked on. Cedar elm, a nice little native here. This is an old Photinia that I've cut down since these were taken several years ago. But, you know, every time I do something in the yard, I'm mindful about maintenance. You know, is this going to be easier? I have guys that come to mow for me, but, you know, is it going to be a nightmare for them to deal with, a nightmare for me to go pull weeds in the area? So I put out the edging, and look right here, grass was barely growing because there was no sunlight on this side. I didn't even have to put cardboard on this end, but I did put cardboard all along this edging line because this picture was taken during the dormant season, as you can see. But even though the grass is dormant, don't trust it. Don't put mulch on top. You have to put cardboard on top. That's another great thing about lasagna gardening. You can do it in the winter when there's nothing else to really do. Do it in the winter. It's like you've got natural air conditioning outside, and it's great to work outside. But I like to do this during the down season. Here is a flower bed expansion that I did. Now, this flower bed here with a lighter brown mulch was put in by the builder. And they were so skinny, I could barely plant anything. The shrubs they put in, I've yanked all this out since then. Those are builder grade, you know, shrubs. But they were just coming out. And see right here, this line. Okay, this line right here. This is what I added. And this only took me maybe 3 to 4 hours working by myself. I did have my husband help me move this big boulder here, but that's just a stepping stone that I added because this was here. But you can see here this line of demarcation, and I took this picture just to show when I teach this class, I have doubled this flower bed in just a matter of hours working on my own. Do you see any dirt or debris? No, no. Just put in the edging I already had. All I did was pop it out where it used to be. I used a shovel to get underneath. I popped it out. I wet the soil where I wanted the new edging to go. And I used a shovel to perforate like I talked about earlier. And I popped the edging back in where I wanted the new line to be. Cardboard all underneath this, but you can't see it, right? Because the mulch covers it up. It's like you're tricking people, but in a good way. So look at this, a different angle. This is the old flower bed. And you can see right here where I added the new flower bed. Okay, again, old flower bed, extended. Okay, so I expanded this flower bed so easily. You know, of course, I can't plant in this darker area yet. Okay, this was years ago, but now it's rich, easy to plant in, amended. I have replanted these flower beds since then, and it looks great. Another flower bed expansion. I mean, look at what the builders put in. Super skinny, very hard to garden. If you're a big gardener, you know, you just run out of space all the time. You're always looking for more space. So I popped it out with the shovel, as I show you here, and wet the lawn so it was easier for me to get into, perforated it, and I just put that same edging back down. I did not add any. I just used what I had before, and that's why I like metal edging. It's so forgiving. So all of this grass, I did this with. I just put, this is the same picture, just a different angle from top to bottom and then from bottom top. But you can see here I started to mulch right on top of this moist cardboard that I sprayed down. This is several layers. Underneath this is all grass. I wanted to plant a desert willow right here, so I did just that. Okay, just making sure that I get all that grass dug out around it first. You have to be very careful when you want instant gratification. And then shortly after, this is what it looked like. Okay, shortly after I finished the job. And then this is what it looked like about 2 years later. There's that desert willow. They grow very, very fast. And you know, I was pretty happy with this. Look how healthy everything looks. I don't use any fertilizers or anything on my plants. They just did so well. I did get rid of this grass later on. I'm telling you, this is addictive. You know, once you start lasagna gardening, you just want to continue making bigger flower beds. So this was many years ago, and I've expanded all this where I just continuously get rid of lawn in my yard. This was taken probably 4 or 5 years ago after that horrible freeze we had in 2021. So that was what, 3 years ago. This shrub that covered this ugly pool piping died. So I cut it down, but obviously didn't want to dig it up because of the roots and electrical and plumbing. I just didn't want to mess with that. So I cut it down. I'm just going to wait for this to rot away. And I planted another evergreen shrub right here. Ignore this. I was going to plant it here, but I changed my mind. So I put it right here. And you can see my little soft spray paint line right here of where my imaginary line is, where I wanted the new bed to be, so that this shrub is included in the flower bed. It doesn't look like an add-on. And there it is right here. You can't even tell. I did, you know, freshen up the old mulch that was already here. I added a few rocks, but this is where it ended before. It was right here. And then I just added this in, added some more rocks, and voila. It's like nothing ever happened. And then now it's part of this bed. All right, some more pictures of cardboard layering. This was a really big project, so I asked my husband to help me. He is not a gardener. He hates gardening. I joke that he's allergic to gardening. He's a golfer, okay? So he just doesn't like to do this. I'm the gardener in the family, but sometimes it's nice to have a helping hand. And so he came out and helped me with this. I personally feel that shrubs and trees look better when they're kind of grounded, almost like a rug in your living room. You know, it kind of pulls everything together, makes it look complete. When you just have shrubs and trees just hanging out, floating around, if you will, they just don't look like they're in the right place in my eye. So this is a fig tree. Also, this fig tree it's a fruiting fig tree. It has big leaves that in the winter they fall, then they're on the lawn. And, you know, lawns don't like that. You have to rake them up or put them away. You don't have to, but it's just a tidier appearance. But now, when winter comes and the leaves fall, they just blend right into that beautiful mulch. Low maintenance. I never have to rake or deal with any of that anymore. Remember I told you not to, normally, you do not want to just put out all your cardboard in one step because of wind. This was a perfectly still day, so I broke that rule. I also had a fence on this side and on this side, that blocked any wind that could have come. So my husband and I just knocked it all out. We just overlapped tons and tons of cardboard. I saved for probably a month to do this project. So here's a close-up of what that kind of looked like. Just cardboard after cardboard after cardboard. And then the edging is out here. You can't, this is the corner that I'm showing you. There's that fig tree, okay? Make sure you don't cover up any sprinklers. I mentioned that earlier on, but as you start getting excited and you start working, you might forget. So go ahead and if you have a sprinkler system, turn it on and mark them with sticks or anything so that you know, oh, don't cover that area up. You might even have to cap off some sprinklers if you decide you don't need it anymore. If there's not a lawn there, you might need to cap it off. So this is what it looked like right before and then after. It just kind of grounds everything and creates a home for that tree or shrub. This was probably done, oh, I'm so bad with time. I'm guessing maybe 8, 9 years ago. I've planted irises and other things in here now. It looks really good and lush. The trees have gotten a lot bigger. It just looks really lovely and no maintenance. Just a little bit of mulch now and then. Here is an area in the back of my yard that I freshly lasagna gardened. So it looks a little plain, but there's the edging, there's the mulch that I put in. And over the years, I have planted some native Mexican feathergrass, put in a cedar elm tree. I'm trying to cover up these electrical lines as time goes by. So that's why I put in that big tree there. Some Nellie R. Stevens for some added evergreen privacy because there's a 2-story home behind me that I like to create privacy for. So, whatever your heart desires, plant away, but give it a good year. So this is that 2-story home. It is behind this tree. It's back there. This is a purple plum tree that was only about 2 years old at the time, but look at everything just kind of floating by itself. And here's that same purple plum in the back. And it's in a bed of that Mexican feathergrass and Nellie R. Stevens. These Nellie R. Stevens are now at the top of this fence. They have grown. So it's more of a green background that I have now. This live oak is this live oak. Okay, probably taken 3 years later, 3 or 4 years later. I really like this. I also have a new fence, as you can see, but it just looks so good to have those flower beds, whatever you want to put in them. But it just makes your yard look more complete to me. Here's a side yard, very problematic. I could hardly grow anything. I put in 2 Nellie R. Stevens for some more coverage from the neighbor and a little tiny magnolia that was a little shorter than me. And I'm only 5'2". It was probably about 4 feet tall. This is that same magnolia. Okay, this is a 6-foot fence, so it has grown quite large. This is probably a 4-year time lapse. This boulder is this boulder right here. So it's the same yard. It's just plants grow so well after you do this because you've amended automatically by doing this process. This is a side yard flower bed. I call it my freebie garden because anything I get free, bulbs, a cutting, I don't know where to put it. I put it here. So over the years, it became kind of a mess. I had cannas, irises, lilies, and Bermuda all growing into the same little flower bed. And I just thought, I don't want to deal with that anymore. Let me just start over. I created it using lasagna gardening many years ago. So I hacked it down. I left the desert willow tree because I grew that one from seed. Of course, I wasn't going to get rid of that one. And it's a lovely native. So I used shrub trimmers, those big scissor looking gadgets, and I just cut it all down. I did compost the canna leaves and stuff like that because there was just too much. I didn't want it to mound up too much, but I left a lot of debris. But I put all this cardboard that you see here in the corner on top because I wanted to get rid of the mainly the spicata liriope, that spreading monkey grass. It was fighting with, Bermuda coming in. There was no way for me to pick out the Bermuda separately. The spicata was trying to go out a lot. It was just a big nightmare. So I just got rid of it. And you can't see it, but there is cardboard underneath all this and then mulch. I put a big flower pot where the cannas were growing just to ensure that didn't get lifted up. And I put 2 rocks where I thought some irises might pop up just to ensure that it doesn't lift the cardboard there. Not a single thing has come out. This was done about 3 years ago. This is now my native garden. I only plant natives in this area here. This is my cactus trough area. It was previously a rough, tough area to grow, to mow, I'm sorry. There's a little gas doohickey here for the house. Just, you know, I didn't want anybody bumping into this or breaking it, anything like that. So I went ahead and put some edging right in here all along the corner of the house here to kind of soften it up, as you see here. And then put a bunch of cardboard down and then mulched. Okay. I thought I was going to landscape this area, but my husband and I found that it's kind of nice just being a nice, clean, quiet area. Not to mention there's a water spigot on the other side of this air conditioning. It's easy access to the air conditioner for any maintenance issues. And my husband is kind of afraid of snakes. So it's kind of nice not to have to walk through this skinny area thinking a snake might pop out, because one day a snake was there. A friendly snake though. We're friendly snake people, but it still kind of spooks you when you see one that's 6 feet long and you didn't expect it. So it's kind of nice to have this clean walkway. This was taken several years ago, but you know, 5, 7 years later, it still looks exactly like this. Only my cactus garden has matured more than this. But I still have these little stepping stones here, and I have not planted anything in this area. I just like that look. Another flower bed, I showed this one to you a little while ago at the beginning. There's that lasagna garden area, and there's the mulch. So I left it there for, I think on this one, about 8 or 9 months, and everything was dead. But I would still wait a full year, okay, just to make sure that everything is dead. This was another big project that I did. This was really thick grass. So again, let me caution you, if you're working with something like this, you need about 4 layers of cardboard, okay? Don't skimp, because once you do the work, you do not want grass popping up everywhere. That is a nightmare. So you might even want to take my advice and do, you know, 3 to 4 layers of cardboard, and then on top, put that commercial grade weed barrier. And that will ensure that, you know, you'll hardly even get weeds in the future when you have a setup like that. But here's the boulder, and I put that there when we moved in because there's a propane tank back there that's really, really ugly. You can see it right here. So here's a different shot of the back of that boulder looking towards the house. And again, and you can see here where I have spray painted my line where I thought I wanted my flower bed to end. But the next day I came out and thought, no, I want to connect it to this. So I actually brought it out like this. Okay. So I made it bigger. So I'm glad I gave it some time to think about a few days so that I can make those adjustments. So I did just that. That's how my flower bed ended up. So here we go. There's that line. I put in the edging. As you can see right here, there's that edging. We put out a bunch of cardboard. Bigger is better, because if you're dealing with small cardboard, you're putting more out, having to overlap more. Whereas if you put large pieces, it's better. If you can get a refrigerator box, washer dryer box, you get what I'm saying? Those are like gold in the lasagna gardening world. The smaller, medium to small boxes that you get from Amazon and, you know, little things like that, those are useful too. You just need a lot more of them. So that was an existing flower bed. Remember that desert willow that I had planted? Now we've got this extension where there's that boulder again, just for reference. So you can see I'm starting the process, the edging, the cardboard, wet it down, then the mulch. This was such a big project. I think it's about 40 by 50 feet that I got tired, okay? So I did half the project and then I finished it the next day. But see how I left these raw edges so that I could continue the overlapping process? So here I am. I finished it and I put in my stepping stones because remember, you don't want to step all over this because there's cardboard underneath all that mulch. You don't want to rip it. You're going to have issues. Grass will grow right through those tears. So here's another view, the back of the boulder, just to kind of show you a different viewpoint. And that's how I walked across my yard for a year. To be honest with you, I hated it. I hated the way this looked, but I knew in a year, and it came very quick. It felt like a month. Okay, time just flies by. It made that soil so rich and so healthy. My plants thanked me. So here is what it looked like a year later. I thought I was going to just plant the whole area, a mess of plants, but I was inspired by these stepping stones at a local park. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to put out these really large flagstones. What the beauty of this is, it's not concrete. So if I ever decided to put in a veggie garden or more native perennials, I can just lift these rocks up and be done and put some more plants in here. But I have left it like this for 5 years now, going on 5 years. So this is what it used to look like, kind of grassy. And now I've got this stepping stone inspired patio that I absolutely love. That's what it used to look like, just a maintenance watering nightmare to this. And again, I can pull up these rocks if I want to. They've been here for 4 or 5 years. This is a picture that I took, I think last fall, if I'm not mistaken. So the time lapse between this and this is probably about 5 years or so. But you can see here that I have planted some native Mexican feather grasses, everything drought tolerant, some abelias, some Helen von Stein lamb's ears, more lamb's ears, a lot of dwarf Yopon hollies. There's some frog fruit over here as ground cover. I've got some Gara. I planted some moss roses here. Everything I plant is drought tolerant, mostly native, but also adapted because I don't want to water. I have not even turned on my sprinklers this year yet. So try to follow my lead if you want a low maintenance yard and a low water bill. All right, so here are some close-ups of that hammock area. There's the moss roses with the Gara. This Gara blooms white flowers, but I caught it right after the bloom cycle. There's that boulder that I showed you. It's still back there. I have planted, there's that desert willow, lamb's ear, Hamlin grass. This is Mexican bush sage, another native. Everything just does really well in this previously grassy area that I did not have to dig up. And here's another close-up of some more pictures, some more Hamlin grass. There's that Gara when it's in bloom. It almost looks like a baby's breath, but larger white flowers. It's lovely. There's that cedar elm in the background. This is a cherry laurel, another native. Again, just to recap, here's the before, the progress, and here is what it looks like today. This is that same cedar, Eastern red cedar tree. So you can do this. You know, it takes a little bit of time, a little bit of effort. You're still bending, you're still lifting the mulch and stuff like that, but you don't have to dig up the grass and let that grass and cardboard work for you. My parents' new yard. I'll go pretty quick now because I know that we're running a little bit late. But here's my parents' new yard. They just moved into my neighborhood about 1.5 years ago. And of course, they just had a patch of grass and mom wanted it low maintenance so dad doesn't have to mow all the time. So we planted some baby desert willows that I grew from seed. Just dug those in, made sure to dig out the grass around each one. This is a panoramic picture to show you. See the edging right here? It's kind of hard to see, but the edging is there. That's just actually rope. We did the rope first, then put the edging in. All right, here's another picture, progress. Okay. We planted a tree. So you can plant before you start lasagna gardening, but you need to do it before you start doing this. You don't want to do it after, unless you want to wait a year. Okay, there's my dad mowing. Look, they got rid of half their lawn, half. And this is approximately 80 feet across. It's a pretty good sized bed for a city. They're on a 1/3 acre. There's my mom working in the yard. Okay, so it's a big flower bed. This was taken about 1.5 years ago. They did it as soon as they moved in. Surprisingly, that grass rooted quickly. We were not able to just lift up the grass. The builder wanted a lot more money to put flower beds back here. So we decided to do it way more budget friendly to do it ourselves, and we enjoyed it. Okay, so we planted some little baby desert willows. It looks so nice now. I should have taken an updated picture. You know, gardens change all the time, but it's lush and nice back there. Mom's planted so many natives, drought tolerant plants. It's doing so, so well. She decided she wanted to do another area to get rid of more grass. So we did that. Here you go. This is cut out because there's a sprinkler system, a little sprinkler right there. So make sure you are mindful of where those are. Don't cover them up. She took the extra step of putting some compost that she had on hand right on top of the cardboard before she put the mulch on. That's an extra bonus. Your flower bed will be extra healthy if you do that. I've done that when I had it on hand, and I'm telling you, worms extra galore. It was just really, really good soil when I did that, but you don't have to do that. So there it is finished. But of course, you don't want to walk. They have 2 patios. You don't want to walk across this and cause those tears. So we went out and bought some rocks, some stepping stones so she could get from one patio to the other. And there's her first large flower bed that we did. These black spots are where she threw down some compost where the grass didn't take very well. So those have now filled in. So there we go. Okay, we put down the rocks. And now she has a little veggie garden, a raised veggie bed right here on the side of the house. It's lovely. Okay. Then she wanted to do the front yard. I'm telling you, it's addictive. You want to just keep going. This was right after they built the house, before they even moved in. You can see here how the grass has freshly been laid, the little rectangular pieces. There's the workers' pallets and everything. I just drove by and took a picture one day. But see how you can barely see the flower beds because of this walkway? They're only like 1 foot deep, which is a shame. So we expanded that. We submitted this to the HOA asking if we could expand the flower beds. This is just kind of a partial picture of what it looked like. They said, okay. And so we started off by putting in the edging. Here's the line right here, as you can see. The builder put in this dwarf magnolia. So we went ahead and included this into the new flower bed. So we extended the edging here, used the circle that it was in, and then continued it on, just made it a real soft edge. There's Mom doing a little cleanup. And there's a finished product. We ended up re-landscaping all these other areas. Mom put in a bunch of perennials and ground covers here. And like I said, they've only been in this house for 1.5 years, so it's brand new, but it is looking so good already. So about 10 minutes later, she kind of jumped the gun, but it was new sod. So we figured 10 months, it's okay. You know, you don't have to wait another 2 months, but she does keep an eye on it. She planted all these perennials, lantanas, some ground covers. It's looking really, really good. And now when you drive by, you can actually see a flower bed versus just up here, what she used to have. I say she, it's Mom and Dad, but Mom's the gardener. So yeah, it's so lovely. And here's some more pictures. It's still a very young garden. It's going to spread out and those plants will mature, but this is what it looks like now. All right. Any questions? This is one of my backyard shots. This is the Mexican feathergrass that I put back there. This is the flower bed that I doubled. Remember I showed you the light brown and then the dark brown. It's kind of hard to see from this viewpoint, but it's a lot wider now where I can plant, you know, annuals here if I want. Now I've planted some more perennials in this area. You know, gardens change year to year, at least for me. I'm finicky. I like to change things up, move perennials here and there. So this yard looks different almost every year, but I've really enjoyed having that extra gardening space. And I continue to get rid of more and more of that thirsty lawn. With the droughts that we're having, right now it's hard to imagine that we're going to be in a drought soon. But you guys know every year we get those hot summers, 100-degree weather, there's no rain. I wish we could average it out, but unfortunately we don't. We get either the pouring floods or the drought conditions. So try to plant your adapted plants. Try to get rid of your grass so that you don't have a huge water bill. And those drought tolerant plants are key to not having to worry or fuss or to lose plants. So if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for listening to me and watching this presentation.
Okay, there are a few questions.
Okay.
One is, are the chip drops free of diseases and herbicides that you might want not to have put in your yard?
That's a great question. That is a great question. That is one of the drawbacks of getting from them. Because honestly, I've thought about that too. What if it was a diseased tree? There is research done saying that if it's mulched, a lot of the insects are killed during that process. Not all, but a lot of them are. But honestly, even mulch that we buy packaged or in bulk can have insects in them. I read an article not long ago where a consumer purchased some bags of mulch from a big box store, and it was full of termites. Okay. So even if you go out and buy it, there's still a risk of something, contamination or a pathogen. My brother has used it. I have really close friends who have used chip drop. No one's ever had any issues. Of course, you could also ask the arborist, was this from a diseased tree? Were there any issues with it? You can ask questions. Hopefully they're reputable and tell you the truth, but that is a risk. But that's really with anything, any mulch that you even buy.
Okay, another
Great
question. When is the time to plant? And do you pull away the mulch, cut a hole in the cardboard, and then plant the bushes?
Oh, great question. Good question. When it's time to plant, you will not have any cardboard because remember, it's going to degrade and it's going to become part of your soil. You won't see it at all. If you still see cardboard, it's probably not ready to plant because it hasn't finished the composting. It's still there. It needs to be integrated into the earth. Worms need to be there to mix it all in. It needs to basically rot and compost into the earth. So all you're going to see a year later is tape. That's the only thing, because it's plastic. That's the only thing that's going to remain. So if you see cardboard, I would say do not plant anything. So give it a full year.
Okay. I have a question about where do you get your rocks and flagstones and how do you move them?
Yeah, good question. I'm only 5'2", but surprisingly, I can move a lot of those things. If it's a really big rock, I will ask my husband to help me. On the big flagstones, I don't know if you noticed by the hammock, those are not regular 1 foot by 1 foot flagstones. Some of them are 4 feet wide. The reason why I went with those is for aesthetic appeal, obviously, but also when you use smaller rocks, they tend to shift and move a lot. And they end up looking like crooked teeth everywhere. So I like to use the larger rocks because on clay, they have more stability. They kind of stand. Like I said, my hammock flower bed, even though I did not do the gravel, the rock, or the Portland cement underneath, because it's not a permanent flower bed, it can be. It can be a permanent solution because it's been there for years. It still looks exactly the same. There has been no shifting at all. But if you use little bitty rocks, they tend to shift and move around. And I just wanted that wow factor with bigger rocks, but they were expensive. I'm not going to lie. They really cut into my gardening budget when I did that. What I did was, and please be careful. I had my husband help me, but what we did was we ordered a pallet for delivery and then we dragged each rock off. We never picked up a rock because that will break your back. We just kind of slid it off and then we rolled it like a wheel. We rolled it to the spot we needed to needed it to be, and then gently let it fall. I never pick up rocks. Another thing I do with the round type boulders, now not the one back here, that's about 6 feet long and about 1.5 feet. That had to be moved by a tractor, a machinery. But the ones that are about basketball size or a little bit bigger, those boulders, I have it's basically what is it called? Not a wheelbarrow, but it's kind of like a plastic small one, like a tote. I put it on its side and then I roll the rock into it and I lift it up. So I'm never using or overexerting my back or myself. And then I roll it to where it needs to be. Then I tip the wheelbarrow over, then it falls. And then I roll it to where it needs to be. I'm very careful with my back after getting a back injury when I was really young. So that's how I do it. Please be careful and don't yell at me if you strain your back. I really recommend that you get a professional if you work with heavy rocks. It's just that my husband and I are, agile and able to do something like that. So that's what we did. This class was to show you how to do lasagna gardening, how to prepare beds. It's just, something that I did on top of that. So do use caution, please. I don't want anybody to get hurt.
Okay. This person said they didn't do a good job of lasagna gardening because the area was too large, so they tilled the lawn. But they're seeing escaping Bermuda popping up. He wants to know what he can do to get rid of this. The Bermudas is still popping up after he tilled it.
He tilled it.
Yeah.
That's the problem with Bermuda. If a lot of people are under the notion that if you till that Bermuda up in a new flower bed, it's going to die because the roots will dry up. It will not. Any little piece of root that's in that soil will regrow, and then you have another patch. So what I recommend, if it's a super problematic area, put down multiple layers of cardboard there, and just to ensure that it'll never grow back, put that commercial style weed barrier right on top, then your mulch, and then you will not have it resurface. But make sure you overlap too. You can't just use that commercial weed fabric on top of grass. It will grow, it'll find a way to grow through those little, the little drainage, or not the drainage holes, but where rain can permeate through. It's got little microscopic holes. It can find a way. So that's why I say you need to use the cardboard and then top it off with that commercial weed barrier on top if it's a super problematic or dense grass area. So I would recommend that for that gentleman. But you cannot till up Bermuda and kill it. You cannot. It'll grow right back.
Okay. How do you keep grass from side yards from creeping in? Your neighbor's grass is growing under the fence. How do you end up getting rid of that?
Elbow grease, blood, sweat, and tears. You really have to just pull it. We have the same issue with both yards coming into ours. You have to just keep an eye on it. If you see a little, little snakes of grass coming through, go ahead and pull it. Don't let it get out of control 2 months later and then want to try to eradicate it. I try to spend about 10 minutes. I have a half an acre. I spend about 10 minutes average a day walking around the yard, making sure everything's, pulling weeds and making sure I don't have any issues going on. 10 minutes a day is all I do to take care of my yard. So I urge you to do the same, because if you let things get out of control, as you know, one piece of Bermuda that sticks out of a flower bed, which it will happen. That's why I hate Bermuda. It will become a patch in a month, and then your whole flower bed ends up a Bermuda patch. So you just have to keep your eye on it. To be honest with you, I've talked to some other gardeners as well. I've never seen anything work as well as glyphosate, like a Roundup type material, but I don't like to use it because it is toxic. Okay. Not to say that I've never used it, very selectively, not even in the past year. I try to avoid it like the plague. Okay. But there is a time and a place sometimes. The 30% vinegar and things like that, people say it works. For me personally, it hasn't done the job. If I see some Bermuda growing in a flower bed and I spray that on it, it kills the top, but the root still remains, and then it grows right back from the root. That's why a lot of people go for the glyphosate and things like that. I wish there was a better answer for that, but you know, manually pull it as soon as you possibly can.
Okay. Next person, they want to put in natives and perennials, so they're drought tolerant, and they want to know where you can get those kind of plants. Where's the
Okay,
best place
yeah,
to look?
great question. A lot of the big box stores I've noticed are carrying more of them, but if you go to Native Plant Society of Texas.org, their website is NPSOT, Native Plant Society of Texas.org. I believe under resources, you may have to kind of look around. I'm trying to go off the top of my head. Under resources, if you look for plant partners, or it's called NICE, NICE, or plant partners, something like that, you will find a list of retailers in your city that carry native plants.
Okay. Robert wants to know, have you used this technique on a sloping yard?
Yes, I don't know if you noticed my parents, their front and backyards are sloped. Um, Now, it depends on the degree of slope, because if you have a downpour, you don't want all of your mulch to flood away. On slopes, I recommend using cedar mulch because it doesn't float as much as the bark mulches do. Not to say that it won't at all, but it is one of the mulches that has a tendency to stay put when we have flooding conditions or a slope condition. So that's why we opted to use cedar mulch at my parents' house, because they have, like I said, front and back sloping. They have not had any issues with the mulch moving.
Good.
Now, if you've got, you know, a severe slope, that's a different question. You might have to put in a retaining wall or do something like that to fix that issue. You may also want to use some stones or things like that to slow down the water if you're having that issue. And then in the future, plant some erosion control ground covers.
Okay. How do you prevent weeds from growing when you put plants in when layering the cardboard and mulch?
It's tricky. It's very tricky. You have to be very, very careful. What I do is I just take extra time digging that hole and making sure, you know, most yards are Bermuda in this area. Just making sure you don't have any stragglers that end up in the hole that can regrow, and kind of scalping deeply all around that hole you created for that plant. And then putting in your plant, you can put that cardboard almost up against that plant. So you're basically covering the root ball of that original plant almost up to the stem, and then mulch right on top. But keep an eye on it, because that's the number one issue here, is that the edges and wherever you plant something, you might have some escapees happen. So I urge people, if you do this, don't just do it and then go on a 3-month cruise. You have to keep an eye on this. The first year, you have to babysit it. You really have to keep an eye on it.
Okay. One of the attendees says WizQ is a great place for diverse rock selection. Have you
Yes,
used WizQ?
I love WizQ. You know, we're not supposed to recommend specific things, but I personally have gone there before. There's a Madison Stone near me for soils and mulches. There's a lot of other places too. But yeah, I've purchased from there.
Could you do a lasagna garden on a flower bed that's already laid out?
One that you already have plants growing in.
Yes, I'm
Yes.
assuming that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes, that's the number one thing I recommend for people whose flower beds have gotten out of control because of Bermuda. Go ahead and put that cardboard in between all of those plants. Okay. If it's so bad that it's growing into your plants and shrubs, you may have to selectively hand pull. You might have to resort to chemical treatment, spot treating each little plant that you cut down to eradicate that completely. But for the large open areas in between shrubs or plants, put down those pieces of cardboard and then put mulch right on top.
Okay. Shonda wants to know, do ants invade the beds while you're waiting? You have
No,
trouble with ants?
I've never had ants get in. You know, occasionally I'll have it happen in my compost bin, but I've never had ants in a lasagna bed. I've had ants in flower beds in general, but I don't remember ever having ant piles in a cooking or what I call simmering lasagna bed waiting to be planted. I haven't had that. Not me personally.
Okay. Do you have any tips about vegetables in a lasagna garden?
Yes. Recently I visited a home and they put down, they had some raised beds for vegetable gardens, but I noticed a lot of Bermuda popping up. So I asked her what she did to prepare. What I normally do for a raised bed on top of grass is put down many layers of cardboard. What she did was she just put down a layer of weed barrier, and I don't know what type she put down, but that's just not enough. You really need to put down several layers. So what I would do is put down many layers of cardboard because you need to ensure that nothing's ever going to get through. Okay, because you don't have a second chance when you've got all that soil in there. I would put down maybe 5, 6 layers of cardboard on the very bottom because that's all going to become good soil in the future. And then put weed barrier right on top. Then put your soil in just to ensure that any future Bermuda grass can't get through that. It'll help. Another thing that I've done, I always recommend putting a walkway or some type of barrier around your vegetable garden and not just put it right up against Bermuda, because Bermuda wants to go where that good vegetable soil is. So it's going to creep into your vegetable bed and then you've got a mess on your hands over time. So what I did was around my raised vegetable garden, I dug about 6 to 8 inches all around it and I filled it with concrete. That's what I did just to create an underground barrier, because just using edging is not enough. You have to get down pretty deep. But that's what I personally did, and I have not had any Bermuda get into it since I did that. Now, before I did that, I did have some creep up, and that's why I resorted to this. It did not take any time at all. I didn't use rebar. All I did was dig a trench, like I said, 6 to 8 inches, pour concrete in it. So it's underground. You don't even see it. In your vegetable garden, of course, you don't want to use chemicals, right? Because you're going to eat all of that. So if you see some Bermuda, you need to get on it quickly. That's the key all the time, is to get on it quickly before it becomes an issue. If you see two little sprigs, get some cardboard, put it right on top, and kind of bend the edges down to create a little cave so that grass cannot see any sunlight at all. Then throw some mulch on it. No photosynthesis, that grass will die naturally without chemical use.
Okay, so you've finished your mulched garden beds, but after a few years, some weeds start popping up. So what do you do at that point?
Okay, that's the nature, unfortunately, of any flower bed. You know, birds fly over, they poop, and they deposit seeds, and then you get weeds. The key again is to do your maintenance, whether it's 10 minutes a week, whatever it is, to prevent any headaches in the future. If you find that, you know, let's say your next door neighbor's lawn is full of weeds. So you're doing what you can, but you're always getting their weed seeds blown into your flower beds. You may want to put down some cardboard, then put your mulch on top just to slow it down, or get some of that commercial weed barrier and put that down. It'll help. And then put the mulch right on top to cover it up. But honestly, no matter what I've done, you know, my flower beds, a piece of Bermuda will try to invade it. So I go out there and I pull it quickly. So I'm just a little uptight about keeping my flower beds clean. So it's not a problem for me, but people who don't like to garden, it's a chore. I get it. It can be a chore. You just have to be on top of it.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't have a magic answer for that one.
I don't think any of us do.
I know, I wish there was.
Yeah. Any concern for termites in mulch beds if you put the mulch around the house?
You know, I have heard that mulch, you know, because it is wood, but I haven't had any issues, knock on wood, but I have read that that could possibly bring termites to your house if you have mulched flower beds. But on the flip side, here in Texas, you know, the joke is that you either have a home with foundation damage or you will have a home with foundation damage because of the shifting in the clay or drought. Then it swells up with water when we have these flooding rains. And I just personally believe that having a mulched flower bed around the house keeps it cooler and keeps moisture during drought periods. Our builder, as a matter of fact, when we built this house almost 15 years ago, told us, you know, either put flower beds all around it or make sure you're drip irrigating around your foundation because you don't want that to ever dry out. So there's a pro and a con. You know, some people have had termites. I haven't dealt with that. So, you know, you may want to contact a professional in that field for that.
One of the participants said they thought concrete could change the pH level of the soil.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
I have heard that. I don't know about the soil, but I heard that concrete in a fish pond, for instance, could change the pH of the water for the fish. So I would say I agree with that, but I can't tell you any specific facts or figures as far as the soil.
Okay. And I think that's all of them. I want to remind everybody that you will be getting a copy of this presentation along with the PDF. And the evaluation link, if you want to go ahead and fill that out before you leave, it is in the chat box right now. It will also be sent to everybody that registered for the meeting. So we thank everybody for coming and hope we've answered most of your questions. Loretta, you did a wonderful job as usual.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope you learned a lot, and give us a call if you have any questions at 817-884-1944. That's the Tarrant County Master Gardening Hotline. If you guys have any more questions about this or any other gardening questions, give us a call.